Hello there guys, welcome to another Magic the Gathering Arena Best Out of One Comprehensive Draft video. Today just started a draft of Throne of Eldraine, but I feel like this one is a pretty interesting one, so let's get started. Alright, pack one, pick one. Our rare is pretty powerful. Thorbrain Thane of the Red Fell. Kind of wants us to draft more in a mono red or a heavier red type of build. Definitely incredibly powerful if you can pull it off, but definitely has some high variance to it due to the fact that it kind of ties you into a heavy one color right away. That kind of makes you want to draft nothing but red for the most part. The triple red definitely isn't the easiest to cast, but once you're able to resolve Thorbrand, and if you have enough red creatures on the battlefield, this can be incredibly scary and powerful. So definitely a card that one wants to look out for, but again takes a little bit more work and has a lot more variance due to the fact that this is quite a narrow card to situate yourself with, but a powerful card nonetheless. Looking at the uncommons, there's Keeper Fables, which definitely is excellent as well. A little bit worse in the white-green archetype, simply because there are more humans in white than any other color, but if you're able to play this in any other color combinations, and sometimes even white has a couple of flyers, such as the Flutterfox, which are non-humans, which can potentially cause this Keeper Fables to trigger. Definitely plays well with the Ginger Brutes and potential flyers, and even then green tends to have plenty of non-human creatures themselves, which can make this ability incredibly relevant. Definitely one of the powerful uncommons in this set, along with Sir Comrade and Edgewall Innkeeper. Definitely a great card overall. So what's next? Oakham Adversary is an efficient creature, 4 mana 2/3 Death Touch is excellent, and if you're playing against another opponent playing a green creature, you can play this, pay 2 mana to cast this, and that's already a huge benefit to this card already. So definitely a great uncommon. Looking at the other commons, there is Brimstone Trebuchet as a great night payoff card. If you're able to constantly untap with this, sometimes you can deal a great amount of damage to your opponent's face. And then if you're again playing an aggressive Knights deck, this can help leverage towards your goal of getting the opponent's life points down to 0. So definitely a solid card, but yeah, again, like Thorbrand, it is a little bit more narrow. And then there's Muscle as a premium removal spell in green. Definitely pays off if you have the Adamant ability, since if you're able to make your creature indestructible, you can potentially take out an annoying Death Touch creature, and also play around the potential Pump Trick that the opponent has. Overall, pretty powerful card. Enhances your creature and also takes on another opponent's creature. But overall, definitely not gonna think about choosing Trebuchet over Thorbrand. Both of these cards are quite narrow already, and in a scenario like that, you obviously take the more powerful card that's a lot more narrow. Probably not gonna take out Muscle over something like Thorbrand, simply because there's a lot more value having this permanent on the battlefield over using a single removal spell. So this leaves us with Thorbrand, the Keeper Fables, and Oakham Adversary. I think I would prefer Keeper over Oakham Adversary. Adversary can still get picked off and removed. In some scenarios, like cards like Scorching Fire can remove it easily, and at 3 toughness, it can easily be kind of blocked and traded off of, unless you have a deck with a bunch of removal spells that can clear a path for the Oakham Adversary. Still a great card nonetheless, but I think Keeper gets the nod over Oakham Adversary. The 4 power is pretty nice, the 5 toughness is pretty difficult to deal with, and even if they use like an enchantment based removal to lock down the Keeper of Fables, it still stays on the battlefield, which makes the passive ability quite relevant, and still difficult to remove at 5 toughness, of course, while Oakham Adversary, you can just fire off a removal spell, even enchantment based, to get off the battlefield. Great card nonetheless if it remains, but I think Keeper gets a nod of it over it. Now, the question is, do I prefer Keeper Fables or Thorbrand, Thane of the Redfell? Thorbrand, of course, is a lot more narrow than Keeper Fables, but again, the payoff is definitely incredibly powerful if you can draft a heavy mono red or heavy red deck. But mostly, if you're looking to play Thorbrand, I think the incentive is to go mono red ASAP, just so you can maximize your chance of casting this consistently, and being able to resolve this with cards like Trebuchet is definitely busted. Um, Keeper Fables is a lot more flexible, of course, and the ability is still incredibly powerful if you keep it on the battlefield. The double green, usually you can get there at 5 mana, and then the ability to resolve a the ability. And the ability is also nice since if you're able to connect once, you draw a card. So the debate is whether or not I want to take the more narrow choice for a potential a little bit more damage, or the more flexible, easier to cast card, which can potentially draw me a card. Um, let's just say Thorbrand Thorbrand is powerful, but sometimes drafting mono red might not be the best strategy to go in limited. Of course, it is the high variance choice since the following packs could have amazing red cards, and I can totally miss out on a powerful Thorbrand deck, but it's still again a lot more variance, and quite narrow. And let's just say the opponent has a removal spell, they get rid of Thorbrand, and then you are left behind with a bunch of mediocre red cards that aren't too exciting due to the fact that you passed up on a potential second color um, throughout the draft. So there's definitely some narrow implications to this. Of course, going mono red, but definitely incredibly powerful. But I think I would take Keeper Fables. Definitely a little less powerful than a Thorbrand, but even then, it's much easier to cast. You can pair this up with any other good second color, and this format's looking to play a second color for the most part. Definitely can be monocolored, but a lot of decks tend to excel more with two colors. Um, and even then, the passive effect is quite powerful, since if you even connect once, you can draw a card and gain a ton of value. So really, I don't know if I want to take the high risk, high reward Thorbrand, especially if you're not looking to pair this with two colors. You're also looking to, for the most part, you don't really want this to be like, I guess, your only win condition and your top win condition in the mono red deck. There's an argument for that. Again, if you kind of end up drafting a mediocre red deck and Thorbrand gets removed right away, you're just going to be left with a bunch of small creatures and not much in the meantime. But, again, it's high variance. We could just draft a bunch of powerful red creatures and removal spell, but I think I want to keep myself flexible into two colors, as much as I hate passing this Thorbrand. And Keeper Fables is definitely at a high power level too, and but overall, I think I would definitely take Thorbrand over everything else besides Keeper of Fables in this pack if there wasn't any other choice. But yeah, I'm a big fan of playing in two colors. Keeper's Fable is still incredibly powerful if this stays on the battlefield, and if you connect to the opponent's face, drawing a card is pretty relevant. So yeah, let's gamble on the Keeper. Hopefully the packs don't punish us too harshly for passing up this Thorbrand, so let's take it here. But that was a pretty difficult pack to consider. Okay, after our first pick, Keeper, what's in this pack? Most of the cards that we're looking at are the commons. The Cauldron Familiar can be pretty decent if you can get the Witch's Oven combo going, but even then, that's an uncommon, and I don't really want to take a 1-mana 1/1 that simply drains the opponent for 1 when it enters the battlefield. I mean, and you also need some type of engine that can give you infinite foods. If I already had a Gilded Goose, I would obviously pick up the Cauldron Familiar, but if you don't have enough food payoffs, then this is just a pretty mopey card, to be honest. There's Trapped in the Tower as a pretty solid removal spell. Again, Keeper Fables is not the best in green-white, but it can still be feasible if you pick up some Flutter Foxes or Ginger Brutes that can connect to the opponent's face, and I can still see myself playing white with Keeper of Fables, since green again tends to have mostly lots of non-humans that can potentially connect still. But still, Trapping Tower is a solid removal spell. Definitely can't take out any flyers, which is quite a liability, and of course, and what I'm about to say, and if an opponent's creature gains flying, this doesn't do it. This falls off, so definitely has some issues, but can be a solid removal spell if you need one. Witching Well is a pretty nice value engine for 1 mana. For 1 mana, you can cast this, a Scry for 2 right away to improve your draw step, and then at 4 mana, you can crack this to draw 2 cards. So it's definitely a fine value engine, one of my favorite artifacts in this entire set. And then what else is there? There's a Rimrock Knight if we picked up Thorbrand, and that seems like this is a pretty excellent 2-drop. To be honest, 1 mana instant speed, giving a creature +2/+0 is powerful with First Strike and evasive creatures, and also the 2 mana 3/1 body is pretty relevant. Then there's Cauldron that goes well in pretty much any deck. 4 mana, deal 3 damage to target creature, tends to have plenty of targets in this set, and don't sleep on this because it does does do a lot of work sometimes. So really, I think the choice for us, given that we take Keeper Fables, is Trapped Tower, Cauldron, and also forgot to mention Return of Nature. I feel that this card is definitely main deckable in this set. There's plenty of artifacts and enchantments that you want to destroy, and you can also exile a target card from a graveyard, which is pretty nice. If we want to stay on color, I think I wouldn't mind the Return to Nature and a potentially powerful main deckable card in this format. If I want to again be a little bit more flexible, since Return to Nature tends to wheel, and it does have that sideboard nature to it, I think a Trapped in Tower is a pretty powerful removal spell that I don't mind taking here over the Scalding Cauldrons, because sometimes they're just big creatures that you just want to lock down, and Trapped in Tower just gets that done. So I think it's between these 3 cards here, and I don't mind taking a Trapped in Tower. I think it's probably potentially the strongest card in this entire pack. And green white is still fine, even though it has plenty of humans, and that doesn't synergize as much with the Keeper Fables, but it's still feasible. And there's a possibility that we could end up abandoning green, and then we can move into white knights instead. So wouldn't mind taking a Trapped in Tower here. Alright, are we still punished for not taking Thorbrand? I guess the only red card here is Bargain, which is still fine, but not amazing in red. Looking at the uncommons, there's All That Glitters, which is excellent with flyers or the creature Ginger Brutes, which you can attach this onto the Ginger Brute, and you already get the extra buff from it, and then you can start swinging in with the activated unblocked ability, but I don't think it's a pick here. Revenge of Ravens is definitely powerful. Definitely has some high variance to it. Let's say this card is pretty bad against blue-black mill decks or mono-blue mill decks. And it's also not that amazing against big green creatures that tend to get across, but everything else against a go-wide aggressive deck with lots of small creatures, this definitely can hold off the opponent and win you the game. And prevent them from attacking. There's Fairy Glymutter as a nice aggressive creature. At the 2 mana ability is nice, since you can give a creature flying, which can potentially free another creature from Trapped in Tower. And also then a 1 mana 1/1 flyer. Not the most amazing, but still an evasive threat that can ping the opponent for a little bit of damage over time. And then again, there's Outmuscle, which I think I'm going to take here, given that I took Keeper of Fables. I have a higher incentive to play green over white, of course, due to the fact that this card is just at a much more higher power level than everything else I've seen so far, and Outmuscle is definitely a premium removal spell. Does want us to cast this of Adamant, so we can still end up in heavy green, of course, and then having a second color to follow up. But hopefully we take this and we don't regret passing up Thorbrand. So I think I like the Outmuscle here. Alright, if we took the Thorbrand, we'd be looking at a nice loot spell, Merchant of the Veil as a nice another loot card, and Burning Tree Yard Trainer as with some potential knight upside. So still some pretty good options in red, of course. But in this pack, there's also some great green cards. There's Trail of Crumbs. Trail of Crumbs, when you look at it, you're looking This card is going mostly trying to tie you up into two colors, of course, that being black green as the food archetype. But this card's definitely pays off if you can get to work to happen quite often. And a nice part is that it already enters the battlefield with a food token already, which you can sacrifice to potentially draw an extra card right away or gain some life. Definitely incredibly powerful if you can pull out the black-green combination. We're really looking to be committed to green, of course, with an out muscle of Keeper Fables, so it's definitely a high possibility that we take this card. Looking at the commons, I already discussed the Fairy Guide there's a Giant Skewer, but I think if we're going to move into black-green, Trail of Crumbs is definitely the choice. Definitely gets a nod over the Giant Skewer. There is a Rosethorn Acolyte if we want to stay safe and remain in mono green for now. But I think the Trail of Crumbs definitely is the best card in this pack. The upside of this card should not be, again, underestimated. Definitely does a lot more work than the Rosethorn Acolyte, but kind of ties us into black green right away. Right away, we didn't see any amazing black cards, but definitely the power level is there if you can get the Trail of Crumbs going, and I think I'm going to take it over to Rosethorn again, simply because if we do end up in black-green, the power level is definitely much more significant than taking a random mana dork like Rosethorn Acolyte. I would still be happy with an Acolyte nonetheless, since they tend to be quite a staple 3-drop in the green decks in this set, and also helps you splash and fix your mana for adamant and whatnot. But if you can pull off the black green combo, black green cards, Trail of Crumbs is definitely worth considering. So let's take it here. All right, if we were still stuck with Thorbrand, we'd be looking at this Weaselback red cap. Still fine 1-drop nonetheless, but nothing exciting in this pack. Nothing too exciting for us in green. There's a Felder Pheasant as a sideboard card, Memory Theft as a better sideboard card, and a Barrel Witches as a way to potentially recur knights, I guess, if we pick up any. In black, there is a couple of them, of course, and with the Trail of Crumbs, that kind of incentivizes us to move into color. If we want to stay maybe in white green, we'd be looking at maybe Enchanted Carriage as a fine 4-drop, as a fine 5-drop. Again, Enchanted Carriage isn't that amazing in green since your creatures tend to be big already. But I can still try it out to see how it feels. There's an Outflank as a okay removal spell. It's only great if you can play lots of small creatures and have 1 mana up to cast this. Otherwise, if you aren't playing enough creatures, this isn't too amazing. So I don't know. This is almost a blank. I think in a best out of 3 situation, I'd probably pick a sideboard card here. But given that this is best out of 1, I wouldn't mind taking the Enchanted Carriage here. Who knows? You probably don't have enough 5-drops anyways. And we could use another big game late Curve Topper. I might just cut it, of course, but everything else here doesn't seem too amazing, even in the black-green deck or a green-white deck. So yeah, I mean, I guess I can make the case for an outflank, of course, as well. Given that green is already looking to play big creatures, maybe we do end up in the white-green adventures deck, and we're looking to go very wide. And the outflanks is definitely a fine removal spell. So yeah, I don't think I really have a reason to pick the Enchanted Carriage since the creatures tend to be big already in green, and we should have enough late game curve toppers at the end of this draft. So yeah, I think I can choose an outflank. There's also a guess that I can maybe move into red-green non-humans and take a Weaselback red cap as a reasonable 1-drop. That's still also a possibility, but I think I like the removal spell and the interaction spell with a slight nod over the 1 mana dork. So let's take it here. Given we are trapped in tower, it kind of wants us to think about moving to white. Okay, some pretty decent cards here. Curious Pair is a nice solid food generator to go over our Trail of Crumbs. Mereleaf Rider is a pretty solid 2-drop that I'm a big fan of. The 1 toughness isn't all that amazing, but in this set there aren't many 2 ways to deal with 1 toughness creatures. And even then, a 3-power creature at 2 mana can potentially get some damage in. So it's really between these two. Given that we've taken Trail of Crumbs, I feel incentivized to take the Curious Pair here. Um, it's still fine, maybe in a white-green adventures deck. I mean, but not all that amazing, I guess. Let's just say we do end up in white green. I think the better card is obviously the Merreleaf Rider. Um, but the Curious Pair, if we do end up in black green, is quite potentially quite powerful, especially combined with cards like Trail of Crumbs and then putting a 1/3 body onto the battlefield. So it's kind of close. I'm of course leaning slightly a little bit towards black green, a little more than um, white green, due to the fact that Trail of Crumbs I think has a lot more higher upside. So I don't mind maybe taking a food generator for now. Like, I don't really want to pass up any. And but at the end of the day, it's still 2 mana 1/3 blocker. That's pretty decent. So let's take it here. Right, guess we can try to take a Return to Nature. Not a big fan of the Hengewalker, even at Adamant. The 3 mana 3/3. It's not even that amazing as a blocker since there's plenty of 3 damage removal spells in this set. And it's not even that amazing at attacking since it doesn't have any evasion. So I don't mind Return to Nature. Might even main deck it. There's plenty of targets to destroy, like the opposing opponent's Trail of Crumbs or Trapped in the Towers. So let's take it here. Right, not a big fan of Flaxen Intruder, unfortunately. It's only great with the Lucky Clover. By the end of the day, like a 1 mana 1/2 doesn't really do much. It doesn't have any evasive abilities that can potentially connect to the opponent. So um, for you to sacrifice this and destroy an opposing enchantment. So I think the Flare Fox gets a slight nod. It's a non-human that pairs well with Keeper of Fables. We have Trapped in Tower as a potential way to give this flying, and overall a solid 2-drop in this set. So let's take it. Okay, we could just end up in white green at the end of the day. There's a Youthful Knight as a solid 2-drop that I don't mind taking. There's also a Trebuchet that I wouldn't mind in a red green deck. And I can speculate on this. At the end of the day, Youthful Knight doesn't seem too amazing in our type of deck. It's still a 2-drop, of course, that you can play on 2, but again, they're not too amazing. There were some pretty decent red cards that we did pass up, and Trebuchet can go off. Even in a green-red deck, there should be plenty of knights to kind of trigger this. So I don't mind speculating on green-white here. I mean green-red here, and kind of abandon Youthful Knight for a single draft to see where we end up. So let's take it here. And Rimrock Knights, so we could just be in red-green. Kind of felt bad passing Thorbrand because there were plenty of 2 creatures that we could have ended up drafting, and we could have a powerful Thorbrand deck with this Brimstone Trebuchet. So I guess we got slightly punished for being a little bit flexible. However, we did pick up some powerful green cards like this Outmuscle, Keeper Fables, Trail of Crumbs, Return to Nature, and so forth. But we could be still in the red-green non-humans deck, and Rimrock Knight I'm a big fan of as a solid 2-drop. So let's take it. Wildwood Tracker I don't mind. Definitely much more powerful in the red-green deck over the green-black deck. Green-black is looking to be a little bit more controlling, but and red-green is looking to be more aggressive. If you have multiple of these at turn 1, and then you can follow them up with Rimrock Knight, that can be pretty powerful since those 2 color combinations are looking to play lots of non-humans. So don't mind taking the Wildwood Tracker here. Currently don't only have like 1 human, being the Curious Pair, that might not trigger this Wildwood Tracker, but you would end up playing this in black-green anyways over red-green. So let's snatch it up. And don't mind a Jousting Dummy as a potential filler 2-drop, and a Fine Knight that can potentially trigger off this Trebuchet. Okay, nothing here. Alright, looking at the second pack, what are we missing out on? I think we're kind of trying to figure out our second color. We could still be in black-green if we pick up a lot more food synergies and powerful food payoff cards. We can still be in green-red non-humans if we pick up like a Grumgoli. There's a chance that we could still be in, again, green-white since we have Trapped in Tower and Flare Foxes at our above average commons. But overall, pretty decent start to draft. We could have a decent Thorbrand deck with Trebuchet, double Rimrock Knights, maybe a Burning Yard Trainer, or a Thrill of Possibilities. But however, I didn't see any red removal spells, so maybe red could still be slightly cut off, and the packs are just passing up these extra red cards that the bots aren't taking. But yeah, we could have a pretty solid Thorbrand start, and then all we were missing out are the removal spells. But I'm still prefer to move into a two-color combination to keep more options open and more playables. So let's move on to pack two. Well, if you're looking for a bomb in this set, Thorbrand is definitely Oko is definitely the card that's worth taking here. Definitely a busted card. The fact that this starts at 4 loyalty and goes up to either 6 or 5 loyalty already is insanely powerful already. The -5 ability can be used after the turn you use the +2 ability to exchange a food token for a opponent's creature. So definitely quite a busted bomb in this set. I would rate this maybe behind, slightly behind Garruk and Lockmere Serpent, and I would say this is the third best card in this entire set. But nonetheless, it's probably an S tier card, close to Garruk and Lockmere Serpent in power level. Slightly weaker, of course, but still incredibly powerful, of course. So it's funny because I end up opening a holographic Oko Thief of Crowns in a real paper draft setting, and also a borderless one in the same week, in another paper draft setting. But now I'm opening it up in MTG Arena, so I guess the bots love us. So it seems like the obvious pick here. I don't. We're kind of putting ourselves into um, 5 colors already, but I don't mind, forcing white green. I can even still be in green and another color, and then if we pick up enough mana dorks like Rosethorn Acolyte, we can just even end up just splashing the Oko Thief of Crowns. But definitely a powerful card. Rossi Wild would be pretty excellent in a red-green deck as well. Um, a nice payoff, giving all your non-human creatures trample is pretty nice. Pretty good in blue-red as well. So that's also a consideration. Resolute Rider is a house, but we are nowhere near black white. If you, this is definitely one of the standouts uncommons for that 2-color combination, and it can just go off and win you the game. So definitely a powerful card. Elite Headhunter, not a big fan of this, even though it's kind of like a red black payoff card. A 2/3 menace can still get blocked quite easily. The power isn't high enough, and sometimes you rather sacrifice a creature to do 2 damage to the face over clearing off a potential blocker. And it just becomes a 1-for-1 at the end of the day if you end up sacrificing a creature to just destroy another creature. And in this set, there's not a lot of stuff you really want to sacrifice. You really want to keep your cards on the battlefield, and your creatures on the battlefield, and keep them alive so they can get some good attacks and blocks and whatnot. So not a big fan of this Elite Headhunter, but it can still be serviceable in the right black-red deck. Another Outflank, sure. Charm Sleep is pretty good removal, but we're not taking over Oko. Tomb Raider cycles, but we're not taking over Oko. Scalding Conjuring can fit in any deck. Yeah, but obviously Oko is a bomb. Don't mind myself forcing blue green for now, or we can still be in green, another color, and hopefully we pick up enough golden eggs and Rosethorn Acolytes to splash for this card. But Oko is fun, and it is pretty busted, so let's take it here.
I'll shear the wool from your eyes and spin you
Alright,
clarity.
there's a Dance of the Manse that's still in this pack as a payoff card for white-blue, but we're not near that. There's a Joust, which can be decent in green-red, but we don't have too many knights besides a Rimrock Knight and a Jousting Dummy. So don't know about that yet, but there's a certain knight theme that can happen in green-red. So it can be fine if you have enough knights. Or Heraldic Banner can be fine for going monocolor, but I think we are kind of committed to the 2-color combo. Of course, can be still fine to help ramp out a creature. Trapped in Tower is a premium removal spell I can take in white. Looking at blue, there's a Witching Well that I don't mind speculating on. A nice one turn 1 ability which helps us scry for 2, and then in the late game you can sacrifice this for 2 cards. And I have a high incentive to move into green blue that I might just end up taking it here. And let's just say we abandon the rest of these, Trapped in Tower, Outflank, Flutterfox, and the red cards. What do we miss out on this pack? A Joust, but sure, I mean, there's better removal spells than a Joust. A Trapped in Tower, which I feel kind of bad because it is a good white card, but again, white green isn't the best combination for cards like Keeper of Fables. Um, Tree Folk is also a consideration. It can be a nice turn 4 play in a fine Curve Topper. But I think I'm going to take the Witching Well here. Um, there's no amazing black cards either that makes me want to keep this Trail of Crumbs. I guess I can play Trail of Crumbs with Oko now that I think about it. So yeah, I guess we don't need to really consider black at all, given that we have Oko and Curious Pair already, and Trail of Crumbs can also help me find Oko. So yeah, I could like end up splashing Oko Thief of Crowns, but given that it's so powerful, I just want to make my mana consistent and just force myself into blue green now that I think about it. And Witching Well's a totally serviceable value engine in the early game and the mid game, so let's take it here. And okay, another out muscle. Big fan of this. I think it gets a nod over Garenbrig. Wouldn't mind a Garenbrig as well. I think this is a 5-drop that I've been impressed by, simply because it has the upside of not being blocked by power 2 or less. If you can get this 5 as a 5/5 onto the battlefield and you're facing off against a opponent with lots of small creatures and you are kind of up ahead in the race, this can be quite scary for the opponent to deal with. Even without Animate, as a 4/4 body, that's pretty solid. But I think I like the Outmuscle as a nod simply because we don't have much removal as of right now, and we kind of have to prioritize them in limited since they tend to be scarce and picked over. And we already have a 5-drop as keeper. Like I could make another case for another Garenbrig Paladin, but we don't. We can definitely pass one up and pick one up later. Otherwise, Curious Pair would be fine as well, but Outmuscle gets the nod. Alright, there's a Rampart Smasher still late in this pack. However, there's still Moonlit Scavenger that can be a reasonable 6-drop. Yeah, I mean, this is quite powerful, and we just need quadruple green to cast this. Currently don't have any mana fixing or Rosethorn Acolytes to incentivize taking this, to be honest. So I don't know about that. There's a Merfolk Scavenger, and we should have Trail of Crumbs as a permanent to Oko and Jousting Tummy, which can potentially end Carrie's Pair to make a food, and Witching Well, which can potentially get this off. And 6 mana 4/5 is a pretty decent body, and the ability to return a creature back to your owner's hand can be fine to buy a turn. That being said, there's some other decent cards in this pack. Sporecap Spider is a decent, reasonable 3-drop in case we need to lower our curve and have defense against flyers. Toonvale Tree Folk can be a nice turn 4 play and then a nice curve topper in the late game. But I think Outmuscle kind of fills a role with the Tree Folk. I don't know. So it's quite a gamble here. I mean, I really don't want to move into red-green with this Rampart Smasher. And we currently don't have any mana fixing, so I don't know if I want to take this, to be honest. I want to make sure I cast Oko, of course, and just win the game with it. So it's better off if we just stick with like a heavy green build with Oko as a second color. I guess we currently don't have too much at 3 already, so I can maybe pick up a Sporecap Spider in the early, and this is a pretty decent blocker in the early game, especially against a hyper-aggressive opponent. And this format tends to be kind of aggressive with all these knights going on, and sometimes you just need a good blocker at 3. So I think I can take Sporecap Spider and have it as a slight nod over the other expensive curve toppers. But overall, close decision, but we still need to work on that 3, so Sporecraft Spider helps. Okay, I guess now I can take a Charm Sleep as a solid removal spell in blue-green. It is double blue, but it's not that difficult to cast, even in a heavy green build. We can go maybe even 10-7 and end up casting this. As long as we pick up more Rosethorn Acolytes to help with our fixing, I'm fine with this. But overall, black seems to be cut off for the most part, but we don't care since we have a Trail of Crumbs. Red definitely slightly open with Rampart Smasher being passed to us and a couple of other decent red cards. And the Rampart Smasher could have been on with the Thornbrand deck, so I think we could have had a powerful Thornbrand deck by now, but really can't pass up a removal spell here, being Charm Sleep, and hopefully we can wield this Curve Topper. And white doesn't seem that amazing, to be honest, too. Like, we pass over a Trap in the Tower, and then the other pack wasn't too amazing as well in white. So happy that I'm switching to green-blue with Oko. All right. I guess since we're going kind of going to mono green, I guess not mono green but heavy green, a gingerbread cabin can potentially make a food. Otherwise, I wouldn't mind a ginger brute as kind of an invasive attacker and a food that we can sacrifice for Trail of Crumbs. I think it might get this light nod over to Gingerbread Cabin. The Gingerbread Cabin is a nice land that we can play that can make a food, but it can sometimes cut in tapped, and that can be a potential problem. While Gingerbread can, synergize well with the Keeper of Fables if we give this evasion, and also still find food that we can maybe even sacrifice for Trail of Crumbs. So I don't mind taking Gingerbread here. We definitely need to work on our creatures, to be honest, and hopefully we pick up more. I guess Wildwood Tracker, a second one isn't too bad, or I can try to speculate on the Gingerbread Carver as a pump spell. Not that amazing, since we're kind of trying to prioritize a lot more non-human creatures. So I think Wildwood Tracker gets a slight nod here, and we can play like more an aggressive beatdown blue-green deck with maybe Keeper of Fables as a curve topper. So let's take it here. Okay, there's an Occam Ranger, so we could have been in a decent green um, white deck by now, but we could also been in a powerful Thorbrand deck or even a green red deck with this Rimrock Knights. But I think the choice here is just a Rosedorn Halberd, given the fact that I want to just force myself into blue-green, and I don't really want to guess gamble on either red-green or green-whites. I think the Rosedorn Halberd is a pretty decent weapon. We should have enough non-humans in this deck that this is serviceable, especially with Gingerbrute and Wildwood Tracker. So I think this gets a slight nod here. And another one, maybe play two of them. Or maybe we could just end up splashing Oko and we can take the Ferocity. I think two can be a little bit of overkill. So we could speculate on this Ferocity if we end up in red-green. Joust Wield, okay. Not big fan of the Gingerbread Carver. I guess a Joust. I guess another Curious Parrot I can potentially make a food. Sure. Alright. So red seems fairly decent and open in this draft, so we could have been in a powerful Thorbrand deck, but we're kind of stuck between kind of a more mediocre, lower a deck with lower power level. But again, you never know what the bots are going to pass up. We could still have been in a pretty powerful green-blue or green-black deck. You never know, but I'm happy with the green cards. They seem pretty powerful, but the blue definitely needs a lot of work. Let's just say we throw everything to the sideboard. I mean, through all the cards we don't plan on playing onto the sideboard. And how much playables do we have? We definitely need a lot more work. So this final pack, we definitely need to kind of maximize our green-blue or maybe green-red splashing blue. But overall, not a pretty good deck. But hopefully pack 3 delivers. Alright, there's our Harmonious Oak Archon, but I think that ship has sailed in green-white for the most part. But this draft was pretty difficult to navigate, to be honest. There's also some pretty good red cards, again, like Circara, Ember Shieldbreaker, also Hypnotic Sprite, which is pretty decent as a fine counter spell that you can keep up, and also a 2/1 flyer, non-human creature. But I think I'm liking the Fierce Witcher Stalker here. We currently don't have any 4-drops. We're looking to make some foods to synergize with this Trail of Crumbs. Otherwise, I wouldn't mind a Hypnotic Sprite, but definitely the Fierce Witch Stalker here. And that's a big creature, of course, that we are desperately looking for. Now happy with a Rosedorn Acolyte. I think we should have enough early game that we don't need to care too much about this Mereleaf Rider. Ooh, there's also Bognati, so but I think we're kind of settled into blue-green for now with the Oko. We didn't see too much great black cards in the previous packs. There was no Bacon to the Pies or Reef Souls or Sir Comrades being passed up. And even then, with an Oko deck, Trail of Crumbs is pretty amazing nonetheless. So I don't think I want to just cut Oko and just move into black-green. But I'm liking this Rosedorn Acolyte as a potential way to ramp out our creatures, give us some extra mana, another nice non-human, and potentially maybe splash for a red card. So I think I'm liking that. Mare Leaf would also be reasonable as a 2-drop. But I think our 2-drops are pretty decent. Our early game is pretty decent right now that I can try to take a Rosethorn Acolyte over this. So let's take it here. Ooh, Mare Leaf Pixie. Okay, definitely excellent. Just the card we're looking for. So even then, blue-green was open in this draft. The only card that wasn't as open was maybe potentially black for the most part. But happy to see this being passed up. Don't think anything else competes, so let's take it. Another nice solid 2-drop. Now Garenbreak Paladin seems pretty solid at 5 mana. I can also make the case for the Toonvale Treefolk. But I think we're going to have Adamant. We're going to be more heavy green, of course, due to the fact of these double out muscles, and most of our creatures are green, and the only double blue is like a Charm Sleep. I guess I can make the case for a slight little bit more green for Mare Leaf Pixie at 2. So right now it's just a debate between Garenbreak Paladin and Treefolk. These are both pretty nice curve toppers. Treefolk is another card to play on turn 4 to maybe pump our creatures a bit and then play a 6-drop. But I think the evasion on Garenbreak Paladin is worth considering over the Treefolk here. Again, I've been impressed by this card. Pretty difficult creature to block, and a 5/5 is pretty powerful, so let's take it here. It just has a granted evasion over the Treefolk that I like. Now, nothing here. Could have been also in a decent red-green deck, but I guess I'll just take an uncommon for the gems. Don't think I'm going double Return to Nature in a draft. Now I can take a Treefolk. I think that gets a nod over to Curious Pair. We already have 2 of them already. We should have enough food to Curious Pair, Oko to make infinite food, and Ginger Brute already. So, and I think our early game is solid for now. That I don't mind another Curve Topper that we desperately need. And there's also a Golden Egg, which I don't mind. But again, I think I like the Treefolk here just as another big creature and a Curve Topper we can use, since our creatures seem pretty. If we don't take another big creatures, I think our deck is gonna. Our creatures won't be able to pack too much of a punch in a late game. So let's take it here. I guess a second Jousting Dummy. I think I prefer it over the Garenbreak Squire. How many adventures? A couple, but still don't see a reason to play it, given that we want to maximize the non-humans. So maybe another Jousting Dummy can be fine here. Another Wildwood Tracker. So this seems to be more of like an aggressive, low to the ground, beat down, mid-rangey blue-green deck, I suppose. We should have enough playables. Ooh, another Ginger Brutes. Might replace it over the Jousting Dummy. I could pick another Rosethorn Halberd. Because Jousting Dummy isn't that amazing. It's a fine mana sink. But this is just another food. We can stack the Trail of Crumbs. It plays well to Keeper of Fables. How many creatures do we have? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. But yeah, I can see myself maybe cutting Jousting Dummy for double Ginger Brutes. And we can kind of be a low to the ground aggressive green-blue deck. I can even see myself, as absurd as it seems, to go 16 lands in this type of deck. I don't know, maybe that could just be a little bit greedy, and I can just cut a Jousting Dummy and make sure that we have 17 lands to play our cards consistently. But it does seem pretty low to the curve with all these Wildwood Trackers. I guess we have to end up cutting a card anyways, so I think I like my 4s, like my 5s, like with this 6, like my 3s. I think a Jousting Dummy can go, and we can just go 17 lands and call it a day. I could again just cut a land and have a Jousting Dummy, but I think 17 lands just has a lot more consistency. So something like this, our early game should be solved with all these early game cards. Then, Curious Pair can make us food. Mare Leaf Pixie can potentially help us fly over and ramp. Charm Sleep is a fine removal spell. Outmuscle, Charm Sleep, potentially Return to Nature can be a removal spell. So something like this seems solid. We're definitely heavier green than blue. So as crazy as it seems, we might just go 11-6. But I want to make sure that I can cast my Mare Leaf Pixie on time. Oko as a 3-drop maybe, Witching Well, and Charm Sleep. So it might just be fine to just stick with 10-7. We should have enough forces in the early game. But it would be a bummer if we draw 2 islands in our early starter, and we don't have enough for green. But I think this is kind of our deck. And Oko should be our picture. 15 creatures, 8 non-creatures, so that seems pretty solid. And 3 removal spells, a Return to Nature to deal with something, Rose Thorn, which can connect with the Ginger Brutes. 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, we should have 9 early game playables, and then our job is to, our win condition is basically to curve out, play our big creatures, and smash the opponents, or use Ginger Brute with the weapon and the Tree Folk to get in some damage, or Oko obviously to steal our stuff. Um, so yeah, think I'm gonna make a part 2 video. Stay tuned.